Only a small handful of people are aware of the events in Daggerfall, Morrowind, and Oblivion that prove Talos is a divine. For 99% of the population of Tamriel, they're told he's a divine by people in power. But they don't know of the actual proof, so when groups like the Thalmor come along wanting to ban his worship, there really isn't the kind of proof needed to counter their claims, which leads to opposing views and eventually conflict. But what is the truth really? Who is Talos? Who is Tiber Septim? Who is Ysmir? And who is Arctis? On my video about Ulfric, I had mentioned the nature of Talos being not straightforward, which I felt I needed to expand on, and thus this video. How to understand Talos in simple terms. The Catholic Holy Trinity of the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit makes up the concept of God. Now replace those three, except with Hjalti Earlybeard, Zurin Arctis, and Ysmir Wulfarth. Three distinct persons sharing one essence. That, in simple terms, is Talos. It gets more complicated with the Arcturian heresy into account, with the simplest explanation being that Ysmir Wulfarth is pretending to be Tiber to make politics easier, so that he can act with the full authority of the Emperor on his behalf. Throw in Septim's own propaganda machine that rewrites his own past to make himself appear more glorious, and you get a number of different public images that belong to one man who apparently became a god. Take the enantiomorph into account, and Zurin Arctis, Ysmir Wulfarth, and Tiber Septim all become a part of Talos. Talos is still Tiber Septim, but in his ascension, he absorbed Arctis and Wulfarth in a certain way. The mythic reenactment basically has all three switch roles, until you can't tell them apart anymore. But I think Talos is still just Tiber Septim's soul with merely the imprints of Arctis and Wulfarth. Let's look at this through history, and we'll try to make more sense out of it. The end of Interregnum and the rise of Third Empire. The remnants of the Interregnum's conflicts still raged, with ambitious lords throughout the land, competing for the chance to place themselves on the throne. Among these aspiring leaders, Cullacane, the king of Falkreath, stood out. He had successfully united the contentious Colovian lords, yet securing his northern border presented a formidable challenge. King Cullacane, however, possessed a hidden asset, a young warrior named Hjalti Earlybeard, who swiftly rose through the ranks of Cullacane's army and became his most distinguished general. The Battle of Old Hroldan would serve as Hjalti's proving ground, and his remarkable achievements in the Reach would be immortalized in legend. The initial step in his journey, from being a mere mortal to a ruler and ultimately to godhood, occurred amidst a war in the Western Reach. Hjalti's formidable forces, comprised of Colovian soldiers and Nordic berserkers, relentlessly pressed forward against the Reachmen's defenses. This unrelenting assault forced the Reachmen to fall back to their last significant bastion, Old Hroldan. Within the safety of their palisaded walls, the Witchmen taunted the attackers, who were unaccustomed to such fortifications. In this challenging moment, the soldiers turned to their young and resourceful general, Hjalti Earlybeard, for guidance. Although he was a shrewd tactician, the situation appeared grim. A prolonged siege was unfeasible, as his troops could anticipate no supplies or reinforcements from Falkreath, their king, who was occupied in the south. Thus, the weight of resolving this dilemma fell squarely upon Hjalti's shoulders. One fateful night, Hjalti retired to his tent to contemplate the choices before him. As he delved into deep thought, a violent tempest descended upon the camp. Rain lashed at the surroundings, and lightning tore through the night sky. Amidst this raging storm, a particular cloud formation descended from the heavens and entered Hjalti's tent. This cloud conversed with a voice that resembled rolling thunder, punctuated by sudden cracks and flashes of lightning. Their discussion continued through the night, and as dawn broke, the storm dissipated, leaving only a tempestuous aura within Hjalti's tent. Emerging from this ethereal encounter, with the swirling clouds veiling his head, the general presented an awe-inspiring sight. The warriors parted to make way for him, much like leaves yielding to a powerful gust of wind. They formed a procession behind their enigmatic leader, following him toward the gates of Old Hroldan. The arrows of the Witchmen proved futile against the swirling tempest that enveloped Hjalti. A moment of tense silence hung in the air, as the storm-veiled general came to a stop before the formidable oak gates of the stronghold. Then, with a deafening crack of thunder, he unleashed a shout that reverberated through the heavens. With a war cry that seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth, the army surged into Old Hroldan, and the defenseless Reachmen met their inevitable demise in staggering numbers. The victory was nothing short of resounding, and Hjalti Earlybeard earned himself a new epithet, one that would resonate through the annals of history. He became known as Talos Stormcrown, the Dragon of the North, the Grey Wind, and the Storm of Kine. Word of Hjalti's remarkable exploits spread rapidly throughout the Western lands. Cullacaine's political adversaries began to entertain a previously unthinkable notion, forming a coalition to eliminate the most formidable contender for the Ruby Throne. The lesser lords of Calovia and High Rock forged an alliance, leading to a pivotal battle on the Golden Hill of Sancre. This clash was arguably the linchpin in Cullacaine's inexorable rise. While the opposing armies clashed on the battlefield, General Hjalti embarked on a daring infiltration of the ancient fortress, systematically dismantling its defenses with his formidable powers. When the Nordic leaders bore witness to Hjalti's commanding voice, they promptly defected to his side, viewing him as a true son of Skyrim and the rightful heir to the realms of men as dictated by their folklore. Hjalti, aware of the power he wielded as the Storm of Kine, captured the remaining Breton leaders who had opposed him, compelling their forces to surrender, and the day belonged to Cullacaine. Upon his emergence from the hills of Sancre, Hjalti proudly bore the long-dormant amulet of kings around his neck. Subsequently, the Battle of Five Bridges unfolded, where, with sage counsel from his battle mage Zurin Arctus, Hjalti vanquished an army twice the size of his own. In just 2 years since being acclaimed as the Storm Crown, the Grey Wind had propelled Cullacaine all the way to the Imperial City. The Nibonese battle mages, who occupied the capital, swiftly surrendered to Cullacaine, dreading the wrath of his formidable general. It is at this juncture that the true ruthlessness of Talos Stormcrown comes to the forefront. Where did Talos origin? From the eyes of an average citizen in the world of Tamriel, a figure named Hjalti Earlybeard emerged as a formidable warrior and leader, displaying prowess that defied his years. Yet, one must ponder the veracity of a tale where a young general happens upon the legendary voice, that fabled power, at the precise moment it is required. Some accounts dismissive of the enigma known as Hjalti contend that Talos existed as Talos from the start, plucked from Atmora's icy embrace by the hand of Cullacaine. This perspective suggests that Hjalti, or Tiber or Talos, traced his lineage not to the Bretons, but to the proud Nords of the North. Now, the epic saga of Tiber Septim, as meticulously detailed in the inaugural pocket guide to the Empire, paints a portrait of his birthplace in Atmora, a land once shrouded in legend. It was the ancient Elnefae region, it seems, that bore witness to his arrival. In his youth, he is said to have roamed the frigid expanses of Skyrim, imbibing the sagas of the tongues, the wisdom of tribal chieftains, and the art of warfare itself. Yet, as the world turned and destiny beckoned, the Greybeards, sequestered in their mountain sanctuary, sensed an unrest that heralded impending storms. Villages emptied in terror, foreboding the cataclysm to come. Talos, guided by his purpose, embarked on a treacherous journey to the heart of the Greybeards' domain, where tempestuous winds raged and ancient voices were unshackled. When the venerable sages dared to utter his name, it wasn't mere sound, but seismic force that reverberated through the very earth. The tongues of Skyrim, who were deeply connected to the world itself, foretold that he would rule over Tamriel and urged him to look south, where his true destiny awaited. After the tumultuous battle of Old Hroldan, Talos embarked on a daring journey into Cyrodiil, all amidst the backdrop of a colossal storm. Nevertheless, this poetic rendition of events tends to oversimplify and conveniently gloss over crucial junctures in his intricate life narrative. Meanwhile, the lingering specter of Old Hroldan patiently awaits the return of Hjalti, the very warrior he once nurtured and mentored in the distant realm of Orsinium, located within the rugged terrain of High Rock. It is worth noting that narratives chronicling the life and enduring legacy of Talos are often spoiled by the presence of bias. Imperial records, for instance, have crafted an image of him as a prophesied hero, drawing parallels to the likes of Alessia and Riemann. Conversely, we encounter a heretical manuscript, presumably the handiwork of his former imperial battle mage, Zurin Arctis, which paints a significantly darker and more enigmatic portrayal. Vivek's vision in the Elder Scrolls universe with the idea of names. Names actually hold power, metaphysical, magical, or otherwise, and the sharing of names between the three figures Arctis and Hjalti, both being Tiber Septim, Hjalti and Wulfirth both being Ysmir, and Arctis and Wulfirth both being the Underking, might actually be related to their oneness through the enantiomorphic structure. It's getting more complicated, I know, but just hold on, it'll make sense. As for where it is discussed, once again we have Vivek to thank for all these nonsense. Sermon 11 says, from the Sermon 19 of 36 lessons of Vivek, Vivek then saw the moths that would come from the starry heart, bringing with them dust, more horrible than the ash of Red Mountain. He saw the twin head of a ruling king, who had no equivalent, and 8 imperfections rubbed into precious stones, set into a crown that looked like shackles, which he understood to be the twin crowns of the two-headed king, and a river that fed into the mouth of the two-headed king because he contained multitudes. This passage raises questions and reveals a recurring theme. Queen Alessia combined aspects of Shazar, the god of men, and Ariel's, the god of time, to form Akatosh, the two-headed king of Cyrodiil, known as the Starry Heart. However, this passage also alludes to Talos, a combination of Hjalti and another entity, possibly Zurin Arctis. Vivek foresaw Tiber Septim as a destructive and dominant force in Tamriel, naming him Tiber Septim. Another passage from the Sermon states, Hortator and Sharmat. 1 and 1, 11, and an elegant number. Which of the ones is the more important? Could you ever tell if they switch places? I can, and that is why you will need me. This passage, while not direct, seems to be alluding to the enantiomorph, albeit one between Vivek, Nerevar, and Dagoth Ur, which I'd personally think of more like a failed enantiomorph, one which, perhaps, Vivek wished to construct in order to hide his betrayal. Sources on Talos' life and legacy, as I stated before, exhibit inherent bias. Imperial texts depict him as a prophesied hero, often for political or ideological reasons. To understand the whole story surrounding Talos, we also need to understand his Nordic aspect, that is, Ysmir Wulfarth. The character known as the Underking plays a significant role in Daggerfall, and he is widely believed to be the remnants of a fusion between Zurin Arctis and Ysmir Wulfarth. Wulfarth is an ancient Nordic spirit, often associated with making a pact with Tiber Septim, granting him the ability to wield the voice. And according to the Arcturian heresy, as I stated before, a storm cloud descended upon Hjalti's tent before his victory at Old Hroldan. It was the ancient Ash King, Ysmir Wulfarth, behind this event, who began as a mortal, but later transformed into a returning Ashen spirit, carrying out Shor's will. In the 5 Songs of King Wulfahaf, it is mentioned that his Thu'um was so powerful that he could not verbally swear into the office, and scribes were used to draw up his oaths. During his mortal life, he restored the traditional Nordic pantheon, dismantling the temples of the 8 divines. In battle, he faced the orcs and banished their chieftain to Oblivion. He wielded storm clouds as shields, protecting his armies from destruction. His legacy blurs the lines between myth and reality. When he passed away, legend has it that the flames of his funeral pyre reached Kyne's heart. He was reborn from the ashes to challenge the devil of Red Mountain, seeking to reclaim Shor's heart. Yet, Vivek reduced him to dust. He returned from the ashes again to repel an Akaviri invasion. Afterward, his spirit wandered the winds for many years. Remember the time when the Greybeards shook the world with their proclamation of the new Dragonborn in Skyrim? Well, according to the Arcturian heresy, a similar roaring, a seismic event allegedly awakened the Ash King, Wulfarth. However, the Greybeards vehemently denied this claim, forcibly reducing him to ash once more. They issued a solemn warning to Wulfarth about the color of betrayal, yet he had already departed, riding the winds once more, in search of the Breton youth destined to govern Tamriel. This is the juncture where the initial two facets of Talos converge. Wulfharth, when he materialized in Hjalti's tent as a foreboding cloud, the spirit of the Ash King obscuring his visage. Hjalti, with a triumphant shout, breached the walls of old Hroldan and embraced all the titles once attributed to Wulfharth. Ysmir, the Dragon of the North, the Grey Wind and the Storm of Kine, detailing and inquisiting Cullacaine's assassination. King Cullacane had achieved the extraordinary feat of being on the cusp of becoming an emperor. Yet, that fateful night was spoiled by tragedy, or perhaps it was treachery. Historical accounts would have you believe that Cullacaine's Breton adversaries conspired to orchestrate his downfall. It is widely documented that a Nightblade from the Western Reach clandestinely infiltrated the city, assassinating the would-be emperor on the eve of his coronation. The vengeance exacted was thorough, as the Nightblade not only ended Cullacaine's life, but also set the imperial palace ablaze and silenced General Talos forever by slitting his throat. Only the Storm of Kine endured. The Pocket Guide to the Empire presents a stirring narrative of the aftermath, one that would solidify Talos' heroic ascent to the ultimate title of the Cyrodiilic Emperor. Emerging from the smoldering ruins, he stood with one hand on his wounded neck and the crown of Cullacaine clutched in the other. The legions wept at the sight. His northern magic had preserved him, though the voice that once could rout an army with a roar now whispered its commands. Assuming the names Tiber Septim and Ysmir, the Dragon of the North, he seized the red diamond crown of the Cyrodiils, becoming their true emperor. It is a tale of genuine heroism, one capable of unifying the disparate factions within Tamriel's human provinces. Hailing from High Rock as Hjalti Earlybeard endeared him, albeit reluctantly, to the Bretons. His status as Dragonborn, chosen by the Greybeards to wield the voice against adversaries, made him deeply admired by the Nords. By defying death and succeeding Cullacaine, adopting the name Tiber Septim, he seemed destined to rule the Imperials, weary from 4 centuries of turmoil. This marks the genesis of Talos' triality, one man with 3 facets, an enduring motif in the legend of the hero god of mankind. Zurin Arctus, the Imperial battle mage, was the one who crowned Tiber Septim in Cullacaine's stead. However, some contend that this narrative appears too flawless. An alternate theory regarding Talos' ascent to the Ruby Throne reveals a darker side to the beloved emperor. If we are to entertain the idea that Shur's form was inaccessible to Hjalti, who relied on his symbolic storm crown to channel the voice through Wulfharth, we can uncover the motive behind the grand assassination conspiracy. King Cullacaine's tragic demise on the eve of his coronation aligned perfectly with the ambitions of Hjalti and Wulfharth. The Greybeards foretold to Talos that he would unite and rule Tamriel. Thanks to a Breton Nightblade assassin, Talos became the heir apparent. But what about Talos surviving the assassination attempt with a slit throat? If he had betrayed Cullacaine, wouldn't he emerge unharmed? Hjalti knew he couldn't always rely on Wulfharth to perform shouts. If people heard the tale of Talos surviving with a slit throat, he would be celebrated as a hero and have an excuse never to use the voice again. Tiber Septim, arguably the most famous of the Dragonborn emperors, is mentioned using the storm voice at Old Hroldan and Sancre, and little else. Unless the Nightblade's sole purpose was to trim Hjalti's early beard, there's no plausible reason for his survival. Perhaps the Nightblade never existed, and Talos attributed his own deception to the kingdoms of High Rock. By faking the wound and wearing bandages, Talos could claim the crown without demonstrating his voice mastery again. Tamriel's conquest by Tiber Septim within the realm of Tamriel, whether spoken in cautious whispers or proclaimed with resounding shouts, the undeniable truth emerges. Talos, who goes by various names, wielded effective governance over his empire. His mission throughout the Tiber Wars was singular: to unite all of Tamriel under a single banner, and to give him credit to some degree, he did realize that goal. Black Marsh was politically absorbed, though it remained a region inherently resistant to control, with the Argonians rejecting foreign dominion. In contrast, Morrowind never officially surrendered. Wulfharth, resolute in avenging his past defeat by by the warrior poet Vivek 2 millennia ago, led a land too formidable to be conquered. Instead, both mighty provinces found common ground through peaceful agreements. The pivotal step in fulfilling Shore's will came when Talos embraced the armistice, which involved subduing the proud Altmer and instigating an era of human dominance. While Morrowind preserved its customs and religious freedoms, Tiber Septim acquired the Numidium. However, this compromise greatly enraged the Ash King, who sought retribution against the Tribunal for usurping Shore's divinity. That is the divine powers of Heart of Lorkhan. Tiber Septim then ventured across the Abyssine Sea and laid siege to Somerset's capital, Alinor. The precise mechanisms by which the Empire overcame Somerset remain sparsely documented, though there are hints that the Numidium played a pivotal role in its conquest. Revelations from Daggerfall suggest that the Numidium served as Tiber Septim's clandestine weapon in his quest for supreme power. Standing at a towering 100 feet, it functioned as an automaton, resembling a golem or an Atronach. It relied on the Mantella gem as its power source. This leads us to the intriguing story of Hjalti, Talos, or Tiber's ultimate and crafty betrayal, surpassing even his own supposed usurpation of the Cyrodiilic throne in ruthlessness. Kigrenaxid's initial plans for the brass god hinged on a power source of divine magnitude, the Heart of Lorkhan. While Tiber Septim had assembled the Numidium's pieces, he lacked this vital power source, guarded fervently by the Devil of Dagoth. Septim entrusted the task of reconstructing the tower and unraveling ancient secrets to Arctis, the Imperial battle mage. And although Arctis uncovered a trove of hidden knowledge, he worked with incomplete information. According to the Arcturian heresy, a significant misunderstanding occurred. While the Heart of Lorkhan was meant to empower the Numidium, Arctis mistakenly believed it required Lorkhan's physical body. In the Elder Scrolls lore, certain events carry profound significance. Among them is Convention, the moment when Nirn was created and Lorkhan faced divine punishment. Lorkhan's punishment involved Trinimac forcibly removing his heart, which was subsequently taken by Ariel. When Tiber Septim came into possession of the Numidium, he entrusted Zurin with the task of activating it. Zurin deduced that a Lorkhanic spark could sufficiently emulate the heart and activate the Numidium. Tiber Septim orchestrated an ambush for Ysmir Wulfirth with the intent of capturing his soul. This ambush mirrored the events of Convention, during which Zurin expelled Wulfirth's heart, allowing Tiber to acquire the Lorkhanic spark, known as the Mantella. This event also fulfilled one of the walking ways, or mantling, associated with Talos. Suddenly, everything fell into place for him. It became clear that he was destined to command the Numidium, sharing a crown with the Ash King, or Ysmir Wulfirth. This was possible due to Wulfirth being an aspect of Lorkhan, a Sheogorath, and thus resulted the grand scheme that brought a divide between Hjalti, Ysmir, and Arctis, which also paradoxically united them into Talos. Tiber Septim harnessed the power of the Mantella to conquer the Somerset Isles, proclaiming himself emperor and reshaping historical narratives to depict himself as a benevolent ruler. The term heresy is used because it challenges this official history, presenting alternative accounts, such as Tiber's assassination of Culacan, his pact with Wulfirth, and the true circumstances of Zurin's demise. Given that Daggerfall confirms the Underking's existence was intertwined with the Mantella, it is considered by many as the authentic chronicle of these events. So Talos scam himself. Well, not quite, because he was not yet himself. What do I mean by this? Well, let's get into how the scamming orchestrated to understand this. Tiber Septim, orchestrating an intricate plot to betray his own status as the Storm Crown, called upon the Ash King, thereby validating the long-held belief in the necessity of dismantling the Tribunal. Ysmir Wulfirth possessed a formidable spirit that exceeded the capacities of an ordinary soul gem. However, Zurin Arctis had stumbled upon the ultimate receptacle, an enormous emerald gem named the Mantella. Upon the Ash King's arrival, he fell victim to an ambush by the Imperial Guards. In Arctis's final moments, he unveiled the Mantella, allowing Ysmir Kingmaker's heart to bore through the battle mage's chest. The guards met their end in the ensuing devastation as well, leaving Tiber Septim as the sole survivor. Ingeniously, Arctis and Wulfarth's souls, now intertwined, fueled the Mantella. With Septim as the sole witness, he masterfully fabricated a narrative of treachery and betrayal, falsely accusing his loyal battle mage of conspiring to overthrow him, a plot foiled by the valiant but now deceased guards. Though Ysmir Wulfarth embodied the essence of Lorkhan, he was not Lorkhan himself. Consequently, the newly empowered Numidium fell short of realizing the dwarves' original intentions. Nonetheless, it proved formidable enough to subdue Somerset, leading to the unification of Tamriel under a single ruler. After this conquest, an enigmatic undead wizard, a decaying king of sky and storms, shattered the Numidium, a narrative that may sound strangely familiar. Subsequently, the Mantella vanished into the depths of the ocean. As documented in the Arcturian heresy, Tiber Septim declared himself the inaugural emperor of Tamriel, reigning until he amassed unparalleled wealth. The early phases of his rule underwent substantial revisions, resulting in contradictory accounts and lingering mysteries. Questions persist as to why Alcair lays claim to Talos' birthplace when other sources point to Atmora. Also, there is the enigma of Tiber Septim's apparent transformation after his initial conquests and the mystery behind his betrayal of his loyal battle mage. The core of these mysteries, whether it centers on the heart of the battle mage or the heart of Tiber Septim, remains elusive, leaving us with no definitive answers. In the realm of divine judgment, one could argue that Tiber Septim's path to godhood resembled that of Reman Cyrodiil, his predecessor. This notion implies that Tiber Septim became a cultural deity hero of mankind, much like Reman. Certain sources, such as the cryptic Mantella revealed letters, narrate a cataclysmic battle involving the Numidium. In this tale, Tiber Septim and the enigmatic imperial battle mages witness their shared heart being cast away from the mortal realm, thrust into the otherworldly expanse known as the Aetherius. However, this narrative raises perplexing questions. Tiber Septim continued to walk the mortal plane, ushering in a new era and reigning for several decades thereafter, and not the Aetherius. Why was he not considered living god then? What I aim to clarify, as I initially mentioned with the Holy Trinity, is an alternative perspective. In this view, Hjalti Earlybeard, also known as Tiber Septim, did not achieve godhood in isolation. Instead, it was the tri-headed entity recognized as Talos who ascended to divinity. This composite being encompassed elements of the Breton Hjalti, the Nord Ysmir, and the Imperial Arctis. Collectively, they merged into the emerging spirit of humanity, filling the void left by Lorkhan among the divines. And consequently, the pantheon expanded to 9 with the inclusion of Talos. It is conceivable that the essence of Shor intertwined with that of Ariel when Alessia introduced Akatosh as the principal deity in the pantheon. However, with Talos' ascent, humanity once again found a champion within Tamriel's dominant faith. This factor is a fundamental reason for the strong opposition from the elven races towards Talos. Possessing the wisdom of Akatosh, the heroic leadership of Tiber Septim, and the Lorkhanic aspect embodied by Wulfarth, Talos encompassed the attributes needed to shape a deity capable of uniting all the races of men in Tamriel under a single banner. This might explain why depictions of Talos often portray him defeating a serpent with his blade, reminiscent of Lorkhan, who is frequently symbolized as a serpent. It appears that Talos assumed Lorkhan's role in the celestial order and in the hearts and minds of humanity. But that banner did not come at just conquest. Tiber Septim used the weapon of mass destruction on civilian population, and the aspect of Lorkhan, who is an eternal enemy to the elves, has more than one reason to reject Talos' divinity. While it remains possible that Talos was originally a single individual and that Ysmir didn't bestow his iconic storm crown, or that Arctis powered the Numidium independently of the Shazar, the legend of Talos is rife with inconsistencies. Therefore, I propose that the figure known as Talos or Tiber Septim was not a solitary figure but rather a complex persona with multiple facets defying simplistic classification. The enigma of the multifaceted Talos endures as one of the most beguiling enigmas within the Elder Scrolls tapestry. In the end, though, a lot of the lore surrounding the structure, and basically everything that actually clarifies what it is, is held outside the games themselves. But that's how it goes with the Elder Scrolls lore a lot of the time. The Elder Scrolls is a setting of metaphysics where basically anything is possible. So questioning things based on the logic of real life will get you nowhere. At the very least, we know that Arctis and Hjalti were almost definitely Talos. It is not really disputable, unless you have a very bizarre interpretation of how the warp in the West really went, and thus, Arctis's death allowed for the existence of Talos, the deity, when he was not previously present. Wulfarth and the Underking are another can of worms entirely, but that's the Elder Scrolls for you. The more you learn, the more you realize you know nothing. And that is it for the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.